Hi, this is Mark Spencer from Ripple Training with some tips on how to install and use our Ripple Training Classic generators. Once you download them, you should automatically be presented with the software agreement screen. If for some reason you're not, double-click the DMG file and you should see the screen. Click Agree, and the file will mount, and you'll be presented with a window. Please read these instructions carefully as they explain exactly how to install the generators. The first item is the movie that you're watching now. After that are two steps. Depending on whether or not you have Motion 5 installed, you will follow a different process. If Motion 5 is not installed, you will need to follow both Step 1 and Step 2. If Motion 5 is installed, you'll follow just Step 2. In any case, you will always need to have Final Cut Pro 10 installed to use these generators. In this case, I do not have Motion installed on this computer. I'm going to go to the File menu and choose a new Finder window. Then I'm going to select the Movies folder. If Motion 5 were installed, I would have a Motion Templates folder in the Movies folder. Since Motion 5 is not installed, I do not, and that's why I'm going to follow Step 1 and drag the Motion Templates folder into the Movies folder. At this point, I'm going to open up the Motion Templates folder and discover a Generators folder. I'm now going to go to Step 2 and drag the Ripple Training Classic Generators folder into the Generators folder. That's all you have to do to install the generators. If you already have Motion 5 installed in your machine, and again, you don't need to have Motion 5 installed in order to use these generators, but if you do have Motion 5 installed in this machine, you'll already have the Motion Templates folder there. Okay, now that it's installed, let's go ahead and launch Final Cut Pro. In Final Cut Pro, if we select the Generators browser, and I'll just close it so you can see what it looks like when it's closed, and now I'll click on it to open it, we now have a new category, Ripple Training Classic Generators. If I click on it, we can see the 12 generators that are part of this package. Now a couple tips on how to get the best use out of these. First of all, some of these generators are animated by default, and others are not. If a generator is animated, when you move your mouse over it, you'll see a preview of the animation, both in the thumbnail and up in the viewer. This one in particular is not animated. To add a generator, one option is to select it and press the E key, which will append the generator to the end of your timeline. I'll now move the playhead over the generator and select it. To make changes to the generator, you want to use the inspector. If you don't see it, click the little I button in the bottom right of the toolbar to reveal the inspector. In the Generator tab of the inspector are all the published parameters for that specific generator. Now every generator has a different set of published parameters, and you can make dramatic changes to the look of these generators. So don't judge them just on the looks. You need to go in and look at them to figure out how you can change them. For example, for this one, we could crank the horizontal scale way up and maybe reduce the vertical scale. We could also change the gradient by right-clicking on these gradient tags. In addition, there's an on-screen control for many generators that allow you to change how it looks directly in the canvas. Also, all these generators are keyframeable. In other words, any parameter that shows up in the published parameters has a little menu to the right. If you click it, you see an option to add a keyframe. By adding keyframes and changing the values, you can cause these generators to change or animate over time if they're not already animated. This particular generator is already animated, as we can see by dragging in the timeline. I'm going to delete this generator and hit Shift-Z to fit the timeline to the window. Another option is to composite a generator on top of a clip. In this case, I'm going to go down and select the lens flare generator. I'm then going to hit the Q key, which will connect that generator to the primary storyline at the playhead location. This generator, like all of them by default, does not have transparency. If you want to see the clip underneath the generator, you need to change the blend mode. To do this, we're going to leave the Generator tab that has the published parameters for the generator and instead go to the Video tab that has the general video properties. Here, we're going to change the blend mode. If you want to knock the black out of a generator, a good option is to choose the Add Blend mode. Now the black gets knocked out and only the lens flare is left. We can change its position by using the on-screen control. It can be a little difficult to see the lens flare with the on-screen control, so if you click the transform button, it will get rid of that on-screen control and you can see the lens flare a little better. Now if we go back to the generator tab, we can see a set of parameters for adjusting it. For instance, we can play with the intensity, the fall off, and other parameters. And again, all of these are keyframeable by clicking in the little animation menu. So all of these generators can be adjusted to look quite a bit different than how they look by default. Now a couple of other notes. The bars generator comes directly from Final Cut Pro 7. Although the bars were created by exporting the bars and tone directly out of Final Cut Pro 7, they may not match the waveform and vector scope perfectly due to changes in the color space. Also, motion projects that show up in the effects browsers cannot contain audio, so this bars will not have any tone with it. However, if you go back to the Finder and go back to the RT Classic Generators folder and open it up and go into the bars folder, in the media folder, we've included the tone file that you can import into an event in order to place it under the bars. The other one I want to mention is the countdown. I'll select it and hit E to append it to the end of the timeline. Like the other generators, you can make various modifications to it by going to the Generators tab. In this case, you have the opportunity to change the color of the background, the inside circle, the outside circle, and even the numbers. Now, this countdown generator should be frame accurate for a project that is set to 29.97 frames per second. It may not be frame accurate in projects that have different frame rates. In those cases, you'll need to adjust the duration of the generator by trimming it. And that's about it. Have fun playing with these generators and figuring out interesting ways that you can use them in your projects. If you're interested in learning more about Motion 5 or Final Cut Pro 10, please visit rippletraining.com. Thanks for watching.